We're good. We're live. It's $1,000 for that. I need a new phone anyways. Let me just get two birds stoned at once and, get the phone and the camera. So, supposed to be coming in the mail soon. As soon as I get that, gonna maybe rearrange like where things are set up here. Yeah. I'd like to have this sort of as the set, the speakers and the studio vibe. But where to put the people is the question. So again, it's like all these new logistics that I have to consider beyond just setting up a couple mics. But I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be fun. The very nature of this whole show is that I like to keep it really simple. I like to keep it not edited.
Right.
We're doing the show right now. Hopefully just set some cameras up and to just keep doing this thing and then put the shows out on YouTube.
Yeah.
Cause I like doing this. And I want to make it accessible. I want to make, I'm trying to make a platform for people in Vancouver and the surrounding areas to get noticed,
mm-hmm.
And talk about each other and, just build a community. So, whenever our episode comes out here, I think this will be episode 47 or 48.
Oh, wow.
So creeping up on 50. It's exciting.
I know.
It's been really fun. So anyhow, I'm so glad that we're getting to finally meet today after sort of like, Instagramming, DMing over the last couple of years and, having a chance to do a couple of mixes for you. And, I've been following you for a few years as well. Kind of, listening to your music and checking out your stories. So, this is great.
Yeah. It's always kind of funny to see someone who's actually a real person after interacting online primarily.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. And, you're very, I guess you're mysterious. You don't post a lot, or you delete your posts. And
I hate the internet.
And your artwork is great, but it's like who is that guy? Like there's barely, like he's in the shadows. I'm just seeing his profile like with a little bit of light. So I was like, I wonder, JML. We've been on each other's radars for a couple of years, but like I don't even know what he looks like. So, anyways, here we are. Let's start with music. We'll talk about all different kinds of things today.
Yep.
Don't feel like this is an interview and I'm trying to grill you. Like, I want this to just be like, ask me stuff too. Like we're just hanging out, right? But I am super curious about, your process as a creative person and as a songwriter and a producer. So maybe we can start with that. Tell me like how you got into music in the first place.
I grew up playing. So my parents put me into piano when I was really young, and I just kind of had an aptitude for it. I never really enjoyed that part of it so much. Like I liked having all the theory, obviously. It's really helped 10, 15 years later. Having all of those things that are just kind of ingrained. It's like riding a bike. You don't really forget it once you haven't used it for a little while.
Of course.
So I've just always kind of had the background. I always sang when I was younger, but I never really thought of myself as a creative person. I was always more like, I liked numbers. I liked kind of more academic stuff at that point in my life. And so I've always dabbled around with it, but I never really took it seriously. And then, one year I went out to go meet up with a couple of friends that I had met in Montreal. I went to do a program out there for a month, and we stayed in contact, and they had actually picked up making beats and just instrumentals and stuff. They were just getting into it. And something, I don't know, at that point it just kind of clicked. I was like, I like this now. Now it's not just something that I know how to do. It's okay, I want to learn more about it and add a new tool to my skill box. So I came home for that trip. It was like 2017, I think, end of the year, and I grabbed Ableton and dove in, and pretty much for the better part of the last 5 years, that's been my primary hobby.
Yeah. Oh, so quite recent then, hey? Like that you've been quote unquote making records or actually, recording your own voice and putting it on beats and things like that.
Yeah.
So Ableton, was that difficult to learn? I know everybody's like there's like the DAW wars. Everyone's got like their favorite platform. I haven't used Ableton a ton myself. What was there a difficult learning curve for you to get into that?
Not, at first, obviously everything's super daunting, right? You get in there and it's there's so much going on that you don't even really know where to start. So it's just falling upwards for the better part of your first year using it, I think.
Yeah.
And I kind of swore by just putting time in. It's kind of like gym time if you're doing any sport or anything like that. It's practice. So there were some days where I was getting, as soon as I'd get off work or as soon as I finished university for the day, I'd get home and that's all I do. I kind of dropped all my other hobbies because I got so interested in it that I was spending 6 to 8 hours a night just doing that.
Right on.
And so I feel like that really helped accelerate the process. It felt like a second job for me at that point, even if I wasn't necessarily making any money from it. And then I really started leveling up once I got that initial stage of, you're just working by yourself just before you're even comfortable pitching anything to anyone or before you even know anyone to put on your records. Cause I wasn't recording myself at that point. Maybe I would do demos and stuff just for the sake of doing it so I could hear what it sounded like, but I didn't have any artists to work with or I didn't know anyone. I grew up in Mission. So we had I maybe knew 2 or 3 people that even made music and we didn't run in the same circles. So it was hard to make those contacts, right? But after that, that's where the real process kind of picked up and I had people to bounce ideas back and forth with. I met Known when he was, we've known each other way longer, but he was rapping at first when he was 16 or 17, I think. And we did a bunch of records at the house together. And that's kind of what pushed me to keep learning more and meet new people and break into, I guess, the scene of Vancouver artists that I had never met before.
Nice. Yeah. Before this, was there any, growing up, was there ever a point where you had thought, oh, one day I'd like to make music, or any artists that you admired as a teenager that you thought were really cool and tried to emulate? Or was it literally just like a way later in life, university, oh, let me try this?
No, I always loved it. Like when I was really young, I knew I was good at singing. Like I knew I had at least a natural aspect to it where I was like, okay, like this is maybe something you should pursue, but I was really uncomfortable with the idea of it. It's kind of like being a dancer when you're a boy in elementary school. It's almost like you're kind of pushed away from doing it by your normal group of friends.
I see.
And so I always kind of had it in this back pocket where my parents would tell me I sounded good. My cousin's a musician in Ontario. And he's always told me, oh, you have a good voice, like you should just pick up some more of the technical stuff or go take lessons or something. And I always kind of pushed it off.
Yes. Okay.
But I listened to a lot of like rock when I was younger, so it was a lot more stuff like that, like Billy Talent and like Linkin Park and stuff like that was more in style back then. And then I dove right into a big rap phase for a long time. I was a huge hip hop head throughout university and the end of high school. Yeah. So I didn't have a whole lot of vocalists that I was really paying attention to guide my process or even guide what I wanted to sound like.
Yeah.
I really started finding those in the last couple of years.
I have to ask about the piano thing. Because I was also put into piano lessons at a young age against all my will and crying and fits and tantrums, forced to, I'm just speaking for myself now. You can tell me what your experience was like in a sec, but I mean, forced to practice every day when my friends were outside in the park. And in a way, like, it was, at the time it was not fun, definitely not fun. But now as an adult and, I'm as a professional engineer, somebody who makes money working on other people's records, like I'm thankful for that, for the way that it developed my ear and it shaped sort of the direction that I ended up going in a way. I was brought up on the Suzuki method, which was a Japanese theory of learning music where you don't read music. You take the tapes home, and at the time, like, they were cassettes, and you just listen to them over and over and over. Right. And then you go and your lesson with your teacher that next week is you're like learning from ear. I didn't know music theory until I was way later as a teenager, like when I got into band in high school. So all of those years of literally learning songs by emulation, right? By learning and then doing like a bar.
Yeah.
It was really unique, but it definitely honed my skills, got my ear going. And you know, now I can look back at it and say maybe it wasn't such a bad thing, you know. So what was it like for you when you were a kid learning to play piano?
I really resented it when I was younger. I hated it. Like it was not what I thought I enjoyed doing. A lot of my friends were in sports, and I wasn't. You know, I wasn't involved in as many as them. So I was spending more time doing piano or academic stuff, and it kind of sucked to be outside of the loop on certain things.
Sure.
So I think that's what contributed to it more. But I remember my parents at first, they would just get me to try and practice 15 minutes a night. And that 15 minutes felt like unbearably long. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that long now. But
no. Like
as a kid, everything's way bigger and
especially
longer,
when
right?
you can sit on a mix or something and tweak an EQ for half an hour before you're satisfied with it, right? So it wasn't fun when I was younger, but again, like you say, the older you get and you think back to some of the skills that you picked up, and there's so many intangibles with piano specifically, I think. Like it's not even just limited to your understanding of, you know, how notes work together or rhythm or stuff, but like your sense of timing and your use of rests and just like build-ups or velocity changes and stuff. Like there's so many other things that people don't think about when it comes to it, and it's all encompassed in learning that piano first. Like it's such a fundamental instrument to help pick up other things. I did learn to read the music. Like that was something that was still drilled, but I was always a play by memory kind of person myself too. It was okay if I figure it out and I know what it's supposed to sound like, I know I can always get back there without finding the music, right? But I think the other piece that sucked too is, you know, not that my piano teacher wasn't great, super nice woman, taught me a lot over the 8 to 10 years that I was playing there. But especially in the small towns, you don't meet a whole lot of people that are modern. It's when you're working with classical stuff, like you need a certain kind of teacher, and it's not necessarily going to be the one that you might gel with, right?
For sure.
So yeah, it's just mostly that.
Did you ever do recitals where you go and perform? Yeah.
I was always in churches, always in...
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Those gave me anxiety. Like days before, I'd be so nervous to do a recital.
I was never that bad about that, because I was always really comfortable in what I was doing. Like, I knew I was good at it, but it's really arrogant. It's like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm good. I'm fine. They'll put me on towards the end. I'm one of the older ones. I know I'm good. I don't have to sit through the 3-note songs just to show people that they've actually been there for a couple weeks.
Are any of those skills like applicable now to what you're doing as a producer, like the music theory or maybe the scales, the chords, things like that?
Yeah, I like you said about refining your ear and really training it in the first place. Like it's one of those things that's really hard to explain to people who don't do it or haven't done it. Like I the same way I would imagine a photographer or a videographer can see what they think a shot is supposed to look like, or they can envision these things. Like I can hear what something should come out, or can walk around my house and I'll get a melody that comes to head and I know where I'm going with it, or just knowing something as simple as what key the song is in before we even really get going. It's just little time fixers or shortens the process and gets you going quickly enough to put your ideas down before you start forgetting or waver somewhere else, right?
Now your production now, I mean, I've been listening to your catalog quite a bit in preparation for today. You're a singer, obviously, like a really good singer, and producing for other artists, producing your own beats. I'm curious how you said you're using Ableton. Can you talk to me about what that looks like? You know, what kind of, are you using samplers, or if you got a MIDI keyboard? Can you talk me through the process of making a beat?
Yeah, it really kind of depends on who I'm working with, right? Like some of the guys that I work with do a lot of like trap, hip hop, so the beats are a little bit more revolving around the drums or just about the general like feel of the song. It's not necessarily driven by the melody itself. So sometimes we're just finding a sound that we like and we'll abuse the hell out of it on the song and build around that. Or sometimes I'll just, layer a melody that I think sounds nice on a piano, like a MIDI keyboard kind of thing, and go looking for an instrument in my catalog or my VSTs and what's going to make it sound nice. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we get really lucky. Sometimes I know where I'm going from experience of, okay, I've used this on a song before. I can build around this instrument again or this preset and tweak it. I started really diving into sound design this year, building my own bank of presets. So I kind of shorten the process of knowing or tagging things differently so I know what suits which song now. Or what feel or what have you. So it's I don't really have a set process on anything. I tried to play by rules when I first started doing stuff, and I realized that the best times that I have or the best product that I come out with is when I'm literally just I don't go in with
just messing around and some magic happens, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Like you can't bottle it, you can't figure out when it's gonna happen, but you just kind of, that's why I swear by the gym time.
Yeah, right? You got to put the reps in, there,
right?
Yeah. It's like the muse. You can't summon it. It's just like you got to put the time in, and then it comes out when you're least expecting it. But that's what being in the studio so often is about, right? So that you can bottle it whenever it comes out.
And it's that same principle that comes with like sampling too, right? I find it's almost like this catch-22. I always find what I'm looking for when I'm not looking for it. Like if I've gone in there with an idea of what I want to make, and okay, I'm trying to find something to suit this melody or this chord progression, and I'll find nothing but stuff that I had ideas for the day before. And it's like, okay, well, I might as well just ditch what I'm doing right now and dive back into what I was thinking about earlier, and save a voice memo, try and figure it out, totally. 7 days from now when it comes back to me.
Yeah. No, you really have to just be consistent, I think is the main thing.
Right.
Be putting it out, and I don't know, like creativity is a strange thing where it comes from, but we have to just honor the process really and be there. I think of, I'm not making beats too often anymore. I mean, I still am, and from time to time, mostly mixing these days, but it's when I need like a drum loop and I'm digging through things, sometimes it's just 2 clicks. It'll be 2 clicks and it's like, oh, that works great. Yeah. Or other times when I'm really trying, I'll be spend an hour finding a snare and I'm not, you know what I'm talking about?
Sound right.
And it doesn't sound right. And I don't know if it's luck or what do you call it? Sometimes you just land on it.
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing. It's not like building a fence where you, okay, I'm gonna stack these bricks for 2 hours and I'll be done this fence. It's like music and art, and they don't work that way, So, are you playing other instruments? I hear a lot of acoustic guitar on your production. Is that you or those splice samples?
Sometimes I'll meet people and bring them in. Like when I was living in Abbotsford, we were running a studio, and so I'd have some guitarists come in once a month or something like that, and nice. I'd just get them to either jam over a couple ideas that we had, and then I'll go in and chop stuff up myself from what they've got. I'll get them to just do like a we'll spend 30 minutes in there. They'll lay down 10 3-minute, jams kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just splice through the guitar and see what I can do with it. Sometimes I'm finding loops that I like, or sometimes people are sending loops to me that I like to use. And, but there's I did play a little bit when I was younger. Never picked that one up as much as I did piano.
Yeah.
And I still haven't, the guitar digital VSTs and stuff are still eluding me. I'm not finding ones that I really like too much, so I'm limited in that sense.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. So I mean, session players. Yeah. Right. Tell me about your studio now. What you're recording yourself. Yeah. Still. The couple of records that I worked on with you you recorded yourself. Talk to me about your setup. What mic are we using?
I've been on an NT1A since I started. Like I still haven't upgraded that piece yet. When I was building out the studio in Abbotsford, I put more into upgrading the sound quality of the room and the interface and stuff. So I had more, what's the word for it? More things that would attract, like customers and stuff like that. Like when I was working with a smaller interface, I couldn't do the live tuning, or I couldn't, help people hear what they're going to sound like beforehand. So that was a big thing for me. It's I need people to be able to hear themselves back.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because it's a big thing for people now, right? I've never been like that myself. I don't like hearing my vocal in the headphone if it's
Some
not
people don't,
right.
yeah.
But some people need to hear that playback so that they know where they're going or to guide themselves, and that's their process.
Sorry, is that a Rode NT1? Okay.
Yeah, it's a good starter mic. It's done the job for me. I think that's probably the next thing that I'll go into at some point is upgrading the microphone, because that's logically that's the last thing that I'll need at this point. I've kind of gone over all of my equipment at this point. We ended up building a little kind of half booth in the new studio now too, so it's a little bit more appealing to look at. It kind of gives you a bit of a better feel for the room, but I'm still in kind of a small space myself. It's just tucked into my basement now and off of the garage. Yeah.
So Rode into what are we talking, like Apollo, Scarlett?
Yeah, I'm running Apollo now.
Yeah, the twin.
Yes. Yeah.
And are you liking the native? What do they call them? I don't even use them myself, but the
UAD plugins.
The plugins that you track through live, like they have
they have the console and stuff like that.
Yeah. Unison. Sorry, why did I? Then Unison mic pre's and things like that.
Yeah. So I've been using that. I still only have a lot of the basic stuff on there. I didn't dive in too much to buying Apollo gear. It was mostly just let's get it loud enough so people can hear themselves. Let's have the ability to do the auto tune and maybe a couple reverbs on there so that people can get an idea. But I do a lot of my stuff. I record it dry and then I just remix in Ableton afterwards. So you can monitor it on your headphones, but I want to have the flexibility to if we don't like how heavy the tune is, we can shift it backwards instead of
committing at the up front and then maybe regretting it a little bit.
Because you might have 99% of the take that's good, but if that little 1% needs a little fix, but they can't hit that again the way that they did, right?
I don't know, too many people committing auto-tune on the way in. I've heard Chris Brown does, but not everybody can sing like Chris Brown, so that's understandable. I've definitely learned that the hard way over the years as well, like compressing too hard on the way in or really committing to a EQ tone on the way in, and then when it gets time to mix it, that tone doesn't really match the rest of the record. Right. That kind of sucks. I'm having to undo a lot of things. So I find more and more liking tracking as clean as I can.
Right.
Maybe tickling the compressor a little bit, but leaving more room for flexibility afterwards. Like when it does come time to produce and mix and edit, a cleaner take going in is going to give you a lot more space to grow. So I didn't realize you were, you're tracking other artists as well. So you're producing, engineering, mixing other people as well.
For the most part, yeah.
The people that you're tracking with, I guess, are just handing you the stuff to finish, right?
Yeah, I mean, like with for in Abbotsford, that's where I did the most of my work at this point. Now that I think about it, for about a year and a half, I was doing this full time. So it was I'd have 2 to 3 sessions a day. We'd do the beat, we'd do the vocals. If they weren't able to, catch their idea right away off the top, come back next week. And so I had a dedicated client base that I was doing everything from start to finish for. We'd handle some of the cover art and motion pictures too, as well afterwards.
Oh, wow. Yeah. The whole thing.
Yeah. I just really dove into trying making myself, at least, if not a one-stop shop for people that are kind of newer to it. Like I know that once you do that jack of all trades thing, it limits you in certain capacities of, okay, there's going to be something that you're very clearly better at than your other set of skills.
Yeah.
So I do notice that there are some people when they're into that, or they're more committed to their music, or they're more confident in what they're doing, or they have a bigger idea of what they want, then those are the points where, okay, maybe I can only manage one of the services that I can do for that person in particular, and it's better for them to go maybe get it mixed by someone who mixes their stuff more frequently or what have you, right?
Yeah, and it also depends on budget too, right?
Yeah.
Some people do just want, limited in finances, and if you can do everything for them, great. Why would I shop around? Like, let's just get it all done here. But then you've got the, for me at least, I work with people that are never been in front of a mic to people that are getting lots of streams and everything in between, and everyone's got different goals, aspirations, budgets, expectations, right? So but I would say for the most part, yeah, if you can hire the right person for the job that is a specialist, that's I try and preach that as much as possible.
Well, and that's kind of why it helped me find my niche a little bit, because I knew, being in the Valley at this point, you're kind of limited in the amount of people that you can reach. Like, people love to go in the Valley to Vancouver to work on stuff, but they might not necessarily like to go the other direction. Like, people out here don't really think of going, okay, I'm going to go look to Abbotsford for my studio space when there's 5 or 6 really good places to go work out here. But what I found was, okay, I might not be as confident as my mixing as someone who's been doing specifically that for 5-6 years and have had nothing but time working on that piece. But what I did realize I was quite good at is helping people who are in the earlier stages of their artist career, whatever you want to call it, helping them develop what they want and what they want to get to. And so people who have never released music, I can help guide them from those initial steps. Yeah. And help them at least generate a consistent product where they're happy with what's coming out while they figure out what they want to do. So that was, maybe I was undercutting myself from a price standpoint, but it allowed me to do the job full time every day. And at the end of the day, that's really what I wanted.
Yeah. And if you're, and if you're enjoying it, if you feel like, I know for me, like I very similarly, a lot of my clients are what you just described, people that are new and that are starting out, and then I can develop, before I ever was an engineer or producer, I used to MC, I did everything myself. Right. I was a rapper. I made my beats. I did my artwork. I recorded myself. And then eventually one thing led to the next, and recording friends and recording other people. And hey, I kind of like that part too. Maybe I can turn that into a career. Right. Performing on stage. I feel like my background is a little bit of everything. Like, I've done a lot of it, like a basketball coach who was previously a player in the NBA, now coaching a team, right? Yeah. Like, I've seen all of that shit now. Like, I'll help you guys make less mistakes because I've been through it. Right. And I do enjoy that a lot. I get a lot of satisfaction, and it's very rewarding watching people who are maybe very, very, very new, never made a record. 2-3 years later, when you see them get a bit of confidence, techniques that you've helped them with on the mic that they start doing without you having to remind them, and it's like, oh, I taught them that, and now they're doing it. Like, look at them go. It's great. It's been really, really cool for me. There's still a lot of room for growth. But it's been a really rewarding process for me. I'm still tracking a bit. But my main thing that I'm trying to do these days is mix. I'm just trying to be what's the word? Like not a destination, but
a transaction kind of thing, or
well, just a specialist for that one thing. Oh, okay, so when people, but at the same time, the majority of my mixes are still coming from the artists that I'm recording. Right. Right. How are you, when you were in Abbotsford, sounding like, doing well, busy, 2-3 sessions a day? How were you getting a lot of your work? Was it online? Was it word of mouth? Was it just the community there that?
So when I first started and built the business out there, the idea that I was going to go off of originally was I had 4 guys that were already coming to me to do sessions every so often. And I thought, okay, you know what, if I give you guys a deal where you're here once a week, get us your dedicated session time, we can work on the beats, we can work on whatever, we can go through your artwork, we can do everything. Like, you get me for this amount of time once a week, we do everything. Gave him a deal on the price, and that gave me enough to make sure I had my basic amount of money to live my life and pay, for my house and all the space, right? And then the idea was we were going to try and push to get the other guys that I'd worked with that maybe we didn't have the same, working relationship at that point, to do the same kind of thing. And then, build a referral business based off of that. So they would hunt down different artists to come in and pay a regular rate to help build the business even further. That ended up evolving to having like 10 or 12 guys that I knew that were coming in fairly frequently and filling out my calendar. And then it would just be extra business that was coming along the way. So within about 2 to 3 months of starting, I think we upped it to that 12, 13 guys that were there very consistently.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it went really well. Kept me busy,
Yeah.
but it didn't feel like it, right? Like it was obviously a little tired some days, and you're spending that much time working on stuff, but it didn't really feel like work, right? It's like you're down there making music, and then you come upstairs to hang out for a little bit and just take a little break. It was like having everything contained. It was just like, how can I complain?
The word of mouth thing that's smart, but tried that a little bit. I've tried packages.
Yeah.
This is and that. And, recently I've gone completely solo. Like I actually haven't talked about this publicly yet, but I was, at 2-Track for 6 years.
Right.
And I parted ways with them in February, but, through all the years I was there, we tried all kinds of things.
Right.
But the referral thing was one that, I don't know, never seemed to take off. So I'm really, I'm excited to hear that you had success with that. It sounds like it worked really well. I mean, from starting and then having that many clients regularly that quickly, like that's remarkable.
I think it's not a one size fits all strategy, right? Like I think that a big benefit that I had a couple actually, now that I think about it, was I could corner the market in the Valley, because I really can't think of another studio that's in Abbotsford off the top of my head. There might be one or two, but they might just be servicing, 2 or 3 artists that they've come around with or that they've grown up with. So I had that, like it was, if you were in Chilliwack, if you were in Maple Ridge, if you were in Mission, if you were in Abbotsford, if you were in Langley, even Surrey, some people, as long as we were on this side of the bridge, I had a bit of an inherent, lead. And then B, I had really low overhead. I didn't have the 2-Track space is huge. The headspace space is huge. So it justifies the costs that you have to pay to go record there, because A, you have so much more equipment than I do. You have all of these people in the room that are knowledgeable. Then you have the brand recognition too, right? This guy comes here, so I want to go there, and I'm willing to pay the same price he's paying, because, ipso facto, my quality will be close, right? But I only had to pay for me. Right. And my space.
Yeah.
And the beauty of that is whatever price I was willing to accept, I was willing to accept it, because I only had to talk it over with me.
Yeah.
So, we very quickly evolved from, okay, this is just going to be as soon as I knew I had the base of artists that would pay the recording time and keep my bottom line satisfied, then it got into the fun part of, okay, how can we scale this in a way that I'm doing less in-person work maybe, and if I can do an album art and a visualizer for it, like on After Effects or whatever, if I can crank that out in an hour instead of spending a 4-hour session and make the same amount of return for it, maybe I dedicate 8 hours a week to just doing that and building up, a pipeline of business from that. I came from banking, right? So a lot of it was about, okay, what money is coming in? When can we expect this money to come in? When is it going to leave? And how quick is it going to come back? So that kind of guided a lot of my business sense on what I was doing. So instead of having, just an artist that was there, that's been there with me for 6 months now, going, okay, I just booked you a session and cut them off a piece of the money that would come from that to incentivize it. It's like, okay, now tell them that we do the art package as well, and you can come record your song here, and you can tell me what you want for the art while we're in there. We can get the idea together.
Nice.
And it's okay. Now that's you just doubled your sale value there, and that goes right back into your business. So it was a lot of that. It was, how can we scale? Eventually I was going to look at probably hiring an engineer from one of the young guys that we've known from around the city that was looking to get their start somewhere. And then I could take a step back from actually doing the physical mixing, and I could still be around to watch over, but I could focus more on generating more business, or
Nice.
maybe even dedicating another room in the house to a second studio space kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, I mean, clearly you've got a good business savvy like about you that, and the musical talent, which is super rare. For me, at least, that, the money, the business, the strategizing, all that shit never came easily for me. So even, to this day, I'm still trying to make sense of all of it. So that's, I mean, a huge bonus for you to have both of those skill sets kind of dialed in. And obviously this, your success speaks for itself. So, what, if any, like, were the effects of the pandemic for you as a studio owner, engineer? Maybe each part of your repertoire was affected differently. But was it good? Was it bad? Did you notice it?
I think I did better as a result of it, because I'm not sure what the rules did for studios out here that are actual places of business that are operating with all the restrictions of being in commercial spaces and what have you. But from my understanding, there was probably way more guidelines in terms of how many people can be there, how many people can frequent the offices in a certain amount of time. I didn't have to deal with any of that. Everything was built out of my basement, and I lived upstairs, right? So I if you couldn't go to a studio, or if a studio is closed, that's great. I'm open. Like if I have a booking available, I'll take it. I'm not really worried about that piece. It was a little hectic at first, just because everything was new, right? We had no idea what this was looking like or how bad of a virus it really was. And myself personally, for the first 3 months, from that March to June, whenever I moved out of my original place and moved in there and started building, I was stressed out about it. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get one cough and I'm going to die tomorrow, right? So, but once you get past that and you get away from the fear, it really opened the door to be able to hunt for more business, because it's available.
Yeah.
Right?
So you didn't find things slowed down, business slowed down.
And picked up, probably, if anything.
Yeah, I think that that was the same for us as well. When I was still a 2-track at the time, I think that was like, for me personally, that was my biggest year financially as a recording engineer and mixing, 2020.
Yeah,
which is crazy. But when I stopped to analyze it, it did make sense. It was like, okay, people that are creative are gonna continue being creative.
Yeah, people
that are writing songs at home still need a place to record.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, it wasn't an essential service, but it was in a way, because music for so many people is like how they get by. It's how they deal with their problems. It's a therapy for a lot of people. So they had to continue doing it. And we were still open, and man, we did so well that year. It was nuts. Yeah. And then into 2021 as well. There was that bit where shit got super locked down, and it was, masks and social distancing. And, we did our very best to abide by those rules and whatnot, but it didn't stop people from coming to see us.
Yeah.
Or hitting us up. Hey, I need studio time. Hey, I need a song mixed. So, yeah, that was fascinating.
Yeah.
As we were watching the rest of the world crumble around us and hearing stories of business owners committing suicide and boarding up their windows and shit like that, we were like thriving.
Yeah.
And we're just like, what the fuck? It felt weird.
It's funny how that works, right? Like it's, but again, I'm not going to complain about having the benefit of that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and so now here we are, on the other side of that, 2022. I don't want to talk about COVID too much, but people still, I know a handful of people that just got it, still around.
Yeah.
But things are picking up again. As far as like how the summer, I feel like I had a bit of a more dead summer. I mean, I was on vacation for a bit, but do you notice that things going do you notice waves or sort of patterns where you have like a slower period and then, oh, why the hell is everyone hitting me up all at once?
Well, now I've slowed down. Like I've slowed down my work right there. I ended up going back and getting a regular job for a little bit just to kind of, again, I'm resetting a little bit here and focusing back on making my own stuff again for a little bit. So I needed that space to, you know, when I was working every day on other people's music, it did, and the one negative drawback to that was it sapped my creative energy for myself. I couldn't think about my own music the same way. I was thinking too almost robotic. It was like, okay, well, if this was my process for someone else, I have to think really hard about making my own stuff, because now I don't just have to think about the beat or the mixing or whatever. So now it's just kind of going back to my original process of where I was, you know, working a full-time job, and as soon as I got off work, I wanted to get home and make music, kind of thing.
Think about you a little bit more.
Yeah. And who knows, I might end up going back into running a studio space when the market kind of supports that. Finding a space to do work that's suitable and, you know, that's still close enough to my client base is the main key to that, but it's allowed me to go back into doing more distance work where I'm at now. So people will still find a way to record and send me mixes, or I'm still sitting on a big backlog of tracks that I've recorded over the last year and a half with people that need to be mixed and that will see release eventually. So yeah, it's just kind of taking a step back to find time for myself and focus back on what I enjoyed instead of feeling so pressured to build up. I really do enjoy the business stuff, but it does change the way you think about what you're doing. It's not just about enjoying the art anymore or really focusing on that.
Yeah, I can relate for sure. I'm also in the middle of I guess I'll talk about this, but I'm planning on putting out a solo album with probably in the spring.
Okay.
Of, you know, unreleased stuff that I've dug through my hard drives again and been like, you know what, this is kind of fire. Like, I want to put this out. Not so much shifting away from, you know, working with other people, but maybe focusing on myself a little bit more and bringing that out again. And so that's been really fun for me. I'm finding things that I've done fucking 10 years ago when I was back at Nimbus, and polishing those, getting those ready for a potential release. So that's been really neat. And you know, as my skills continue to evolve every year, I feel like is partially the reason that they haven't come out is maybe because I felt like they weren't ready. Like I couldn't do that song justice quite yet.
Right.
I felt so strongly about it, but it's like my mixing skills aren't ready. You know, this maybe one day I'll put this out. So the time is now. So I've been working on a project again of solo stuff, which has been really cool. The last solo project I put out was 2018, and even that at the time was things from years before that I had, you know, dusted off and gotten ready for the world. So it's an exciting time. What are you I always like to ask this with everybody, because everyone's got different reasons why they're doing this, but for you, like, what is the goal? Like, is it to make music full time, to not have to have a day job? Is it to be a touring artist internationally? Is it to be a great engineer? Like, where's your goal with all of this?
That's a hard one. That's always the hardest question to answer, because I'll go play a show and perform, and it's one of my least favorite things to do, honestly. The whole lead up to it, the whole thinking about it, the whole having to. I hate telling people about myself. That's why I hate the internet. I hate this idea of getting on your story and being like, hey. Promoting myself personally is so much harder than it is for me to promote someone else that I'm working with if I'm off screen.
I hear you.
So I kind of came to terms with the fact that, a couple of years ago even, where it's like, if this never goes anywhere to the point where I'm on bigger stages, or you know, a label is investing money into me, or something like that, I'm very okay with that not ever happening. It's never been the piece that bothers me. What I would like in some capacity is just to be working ancillary to the industry, whether that's working in songwriting, whether that's working in production, whether that's working, you know, for a label in marketing or something like that. I'm very happy to be a cog in the process.
Yeah.
I just like the industry. I think it's fascinating, right? And that's why the business side was so much fun when I was running the studio, because it was... It tickled all the parts of my brain that I like to work with. I had a part of it that could be creative and not get stuck in the monotony of numbers and pushing products and getting people invested into what we were doing. But also I got that other side of it where it was growth oriented and not just, you know, sitting in the bubble of creativity and you know, because you need both sides of that to be able to push forward. But it is hard to apply that to myself when I look at myself as a product, because I don't look at myself as a product. I just like to make music. So whether I put something into the world and it goes well or it doesn't go well, I can't get caught up in that anymore, because that paralyzes me. It makes it so I don't release anything. It makes it so I don't show anyone anything. And I'm sitting on a lot of good stuff, but like you said, I'm a bit of a completionist myself too, where it's if the song isn't conveying what I want it to convey, I'm not interested in just releasing it for the sake of releasing something so that people know I'm still doing it. I don't care. I want it to sound the way I want it to sound. I want it to give you the... If I'm not convinced that you're going to feel the same thing that I'm feeling when I'm listening to it back, then you don't need to hear it yet. You know?
There you go. Yeah, the goosebumps, right?
Yeah.
You were pointing at your arm there. I think that's what you're trying to...
it's even like if it's just... I just don't know what to do with my hands sometimes, honestly.
I thought that was the goosebumps thing.
No, but I mean, like, if I'm making something more upbeat, if it doesn't give you that like natural urge to move around a little bit, or if I'm making something slow and intimate, if it doesn't, you know, like you said, the goosebumps, or if it doesn't give you the tingle feeling or anything like that, if it's not doing what it's supposed to, then you know, work on it again, or maybe it's just something for you to listen to, right? Yourself, I guess.
Yeah. I hear a lot of what you're saying there. I think it's a really good mindset. For me personally, like, I still don't know. I've been quote unquote making records now for 20 years. I started doing this shit when I was about 13 years old. I'm 33 now. And through those 2 decades, you know, like I said, I've had a chance to do a little bit of everything. Be the artist, be the person on stage, be the engineer, be the mixer, make beats. I can definitely say the thing that I enjoy the most is mixing. But I'm not in a position now where I can just put everything aside and say, I don't do any of that. I'm only mixing, because I'm just not busy enough to doing that. There's still a handful of artists that I've built relationships with, that trust me, that know me, that only will work with me, and they want to come to me to record because it's a good experience, because it's comfortable. So I'm still, you know, multitasking quite a bit. I started doing the podcast again after taking a year off. But at the end of the day, they're all things I enjoy doing. They're all things that I choose to do, you know. I don't know if one thing will be my cash cow or my claim to fame, or that's what Max is known for. But at the end of the day, like you know, the industry, this is a vocation that I've chosen. I get to be creative. I get to listen to music, make music, and this is fun. And by the way, I make money doing it. So it's like, that's such a bonus for me. I have to remind myself, you know, it's so cool that I've turned like a teenage childhood kind of hobby passion into a thing that makes me thousands of dollars. And so that's pretty cool. I'm so grateful for that. And just to be along on the journey. I don't know where it's taking me, but I know that I'm going in the right direction because it feels good. It's positive. Whatever I'm doing, I try and have a positive outlook on it, and just do what makes me happy, right? As much as possible. Can we talk a little bit about mixing for a minute, maybe? Like, I really like how your stuff sounds. My favorite record of yours right now is Hostage.
Yeah.
For many reasons, but you've got such a great vocal sound in that. I don't know if you remember what was on you don't have to tell me all the plugins, but talk to me a little bit about like maybe how you get a vocal sound after recording to getting it to sound that, clean and smooth and just like it sounds like a record to me.
Yeah. So, Koltar actually did that one, bounced at that one, back in, I think that was actually, I can't remember if that was during the pandemic or not, but I think that came out April 2020 or something. So maybe
2020, I think.
Maybe we finished that a couple months before. But I recorded that one at home still. I was at that stage where sometimes when I would go to the studio, I found I wasn't on that day. So I wanted to avoid that. So I'd still bring my own stems in and stuff and kind of get an idea for where I wanted to go and not have to be too in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm not sure what he did for a chain. It was pretty bare bones from what I recall. There wasn't a whole lot of crazy processing on it. And, I wish I could talk more about what we did on that one.
Okay.
But,
okay. So I didn't realize he mixed that one for you, but it sounds really, really good. Are you, you're with the other artists that you're producing, you said you're also doing mixing work. What are some of your favorite plugins and ways of like working that you're enjoying right now?
I live and die by the FabFilter suite these days. Like I really enjoy using their products. I've been really diving into the Saturn plugin and playing around with more saturation and distortion. Primarily with a lot of the guys that we deal with a lot of trap, like I said earlier. So sometimes the vocal performances are not... They're not necessarily something that you have a whole lot of flexibility with. It's just really getting them up front and clear. Really like Arvox for that from Waves.
Oh yeah.
But we've with some of the guys we've worked on, they do a little bit more of the auto tune, playing around with it. It's kind of like that little keyed Young Thug, whatever subgenre you would want to call it.
Yeah.
And so I really dived into how can we make these ad libs sound interesting? Like what's, there's only so much you can do with the main vocals. So what can we do to really liven this up so that it sounds different?
Yep.
Even though it's fairly similar to stuff that you might have already heard before. So I found this one, there's a free plugin actually that I found while I was digging around looking for something new for maybe chorus effect or, doublers or something. And it's called Multiply. I'm not sure who.
Oh yeah. I use that one.
Okay. Yeah.
ASON Digital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really primitive. Like it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of going on, and it's very simplistic in how it operates, but you can do some really, really creative stuff with it that I've never been able to replicate with another set of plugins even.
No, it's got some great presets. It does a really, sometimes I'll lean on CLA vocals a little bit just for the spreader on that.
Right.
But the ASON Digital's got a unique way of chorusing and doing the spreader.
Yeah.
That I really like. And for a free plugin, I use that one quite a bit.
It's super functional, and you can do so many creative things with it. Like I use it on I've done some work for more R&B stuff, and I've used it all over that to try and add some depth to the tracks. I can't say enough about it. You can really do a lot of crazy things with it.
Yeah, man. I'm also a huge fan of FabFilter's stuff. I don't have the everything bundle, but I over the years I've picked up most of what they make.
Yeah.
The L2 limiter is on my mix bus.
Yeah.
The FabFilter Saturns on every track in some shape or form. I mean, I went through a really heavy saturation phase like 3 or 4 years ago where I really felt like, I'm understanding the value of saturation now. And then I think for a bit I was overdoing it. When you find something new and you just overdo it for the first little bit because it's new and exciting. But man, saturation, Saturn, phenomenal. The Pro DS, the FabFilter's DS-er is maybe the best DS-er out. They just make really good stuff.
Yeah.
The reverb. It's crazy, like what that company, and one of the things that I love about them the most is they don't use iLok.
Oh my God.
And we could probably go on a tangent for an hour about how annoying iLock is, but you know, you just open it and it's there. It's like, thank you. I paid for this. Yes. Like, it's on my computer.
I have not had to use my iLock key in years, and I do not miss it at all.
Honestly. And Waves for that matter too, now that they have Wave Central.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, on your dock, on your Mac. I wish everyone else could kind of like catch up a little bit, because it seems like just old when I have to figure out licenses and plugins. Like I was doing that shit 10 years ago at school, and now it's like, it's 2022. Like, let's think a little bit, let's do some forward thinking. It's other companies are making it work. Like, why can't you guys? So, FabFilter, can't say enough good things about them. So functional, so user friendly. They look great.
Yep.
I use Slate Digital. Slate and SoundToys are the two that I've paid for their sort of everything bundle, or whatever thing they call it, where you know, it's literally everything they make. SoundToys phenomenal. The Alter Boy,
that's next on my list.
So cool. Yeah. I like using like pitch shifting. You know, we were talking about ad-libs a second ago, but nowadays, it didn't used to be this way when I was growing up listening to rap and hip hop, but ad-libs now are like almost like as important as lead vocals. Oh, yeah. Do you find artists just wanting to just layer like more ad-libs? Yep. I get people booking sessions to come and do ad-libs. Like, I need to come in today to do ad-libs. I'm like, what do you mean? It's
so strange, right? Because you'll listen to, I feel the same way. Like I'll have a session with someone, and you know, we've got one, maybe two tracks of lead vocals, and they're very simple in what we're doing. But then 2-3 tracks of ad-libs alone and doubles and stuff that go over, and that fleshes it out. But then you'll go back and listen to a Drake song or something like that, and you realize, holy shit, this is really just one lead vocal
and then that's
track.
what I tell them. That's what I tell them. I'm like, find me a song right now on the charts that has this many ad-libs. Like, listen to all your favorite artists. There's not a lot going on.
No, it's not.
And if there is, they're mixed way in the background. Yeah. But all the, you know, name a rapper right now. There's like someone who's doing ad-libs really well, and I've talked about before, is Moneybagg Yo. I think he's got a really good understanding of ad-libs where they're really intentional. It reminds me of you know, Cameron and Dipset and Jim Jones back in the day. To me, those guys perfected ad-libs, like where the ad-lib was helping tell the story. It was a commentary on the lead vocal. It wasn't just fucking bird noises and shit. Filler for ear candy. It was like, no, this is an ad-lib that is actually supporting the lead character in the film, right, if you will. So, but you know, one or two people nowadays that are following the Dipset sort of philosophy on ad-libs, and everyone else, they're not even there. Yeah. So when people want to book sessions to do ad-libs, I'm like, man, like this is just, it's getting in the way. Yeah. It's getting in the way of the lead vocal. Like, you're distracting from what really matters. You don't need that. I think what, and I try and stress this a lot, is like, you know, let's nail the take. If you don't feel like it's strong enough on its own, then rewrite it. Yeah. Let's get the fundamentals down. Let's get get the building blocks figured out here. And have you thought about why you want to add so much shit? Is it because you're trying to cover something up, you know, or are you trying to distract from, you know? So I'm really big on that, like trying to keep it simple and have like good building blocks to begin with.
I think there's a counter to that too, not necessarily that it disproves the point or anything, but just to add on to it is it's not necessarily about covering something up sometimes. I think especially when there's not as much experience or as much confidence in a vocalist, where they haven't been doing it for as long, they hear so many things, and I'm guilty of it too. On certain records, you hear so many ideas in your head that all sound good, and it's like, okay, how can I find a way to incorporate everything that sounds good that comes to my brain without committing to one thing too much? Because what if I'm wrong, right? Like, what if the other thing would have sounded better? So let me just stack it all together, and someone's bound to like one of the things that they heard. But like you say, one of the things that I really appreciate about the well-placed ad-libs or ad-libs that serve a purpose is sometimes that's the piece that brings you back to a song. Like sometimes you're waiting for that one part, you know, at a minute 36 where you're like, I know exactly how this bitch sounds, and I'm gonna say it really loud, and that's what I'm waiting for, right? Yeah. It's I do tend to agree with you. I think there's so much like overly complex stuff that's going on that really doesn't need to be there. It's just save it for another record or use it somewhere else.
That's a really interesting point, though, because I hadn't considered it from that perspective of, yes, you know, people are on the mic, they're excited, they're in the zone, they're creative, all these ideas are flowing, and they want to put it all out. Yeah, I got so much. I got an idea. Let me get back on. Let me do another take. Oh, let me hum this time. Let me do a melodic one. Let me do like.
Restraint is just as important, right?
But absolutely, like knowing when to leave a space, knowing when to say no, knowing, like just the editing process of the mental editing process is so important. And I've talked about this before, but people that come to mind when I think of that are Jay-Z, like as a rapper who was, in my opinion, the all-time great, if not like top 3, but was so good, was the best at not putting too much in there, like leaving space. I can think of other artists, you know, as well, but really, you know, Drake, amazing at just respecting the listener is a really big thing that I keep coming back to with young artists. Respect your listener. You've got all these ideas. Yes, they're great. Yes, you want to try them, but you've got to, you know, are you making this song for you, or are you expecting someone to be able to listen to this and be able to repeat it back and absorb everything that's happening? Because you've got to think from that point of view also. And making something that's digestible is as important as spilling out all your ideas, you know. So it's tough, but that is a skill in itself, learning how to the restraint, I think. I was gonna get some water.
Oh,
where did I put my shit?
Where'd you lose it?
Oh, I'll take yours.
I'm low on coffee today.
So yeah, but who else? Who do you like right now, like in hip hop that's doing it for you, that you think is ticking off all the boxes?
I have a very eclectic taste in rap music. I fell really big into a big Detroit stage. So I've really enjoyed like TJX6, Sada Baby, guys like that. I was really into 42 Doug for a little while. I love the layering that he does throughout his vocals and stuff. That's one of those where
I have to check that out.
There's a lot going on, but it works cohesively. It's not
distracting.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of reminds me of like early Kodak when he was layering his vocals a lot more, and you get that nice thick sound that comes off of them. But yeah, I've honestly been slacking on finding new music for myself to enjoy. I find myself going back to old favorites right now. I was a huge Future head when I was growing up. Well, not growing up, but you know, end of high school, beginning college, and stuff like that. Kind of going back and exploring Drake songs that I liked or that I didn't appreciate. I really didn't give that Chicks Tape album from Tory, the newest one that he did. I think it was a year or two ago now. But where he went over all the old R&B records and redid them with some of the same artists on the songs.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to check that out yet.
He did a whole series of them on SoundCloud for a long time, I think, or that they were just mixtape releases, but he got all these ones cleared, I guess. The album was super expensive.
Really?
Like,
for all
the
the
budget
samples
that they spent on that was, I can't imagine they recouped any money whatsoever. But the songs were great. Like, I didn't appreciate some of them as much as I thought I did originally, so I've really been diving back into that record lately.
Nice. I find for myself, I've had to make a habit of kind of doing my homework, I call it, where I spend so much time in here working on other people recording, mixing, editing for hours and hours that when I go home, the last thing I want to do is put on a record.
Yeah.
You know, I need to give my ears a break, but I still try and go on. I'm an Apple Music guy, so on the browse area or see what's new. Try and keep up to date. Spend a couple hours a week just seeing what's new, what's out there.
It's so important to stay up to date, right? Because this is what I'm curious to hear from your perspective, because you've been at this longer than I have, obviously. It's at what age or at what point in your career did you find that you woke up one day and go, I don't want to listen to anything new. I'm an old head now. You know what I mean? Like I got to that point. My golden era was like 2014 through 2016, and it's almost like anything after that I've been slightly more and more dissatisfied with. I find less that I like every day that I wake up again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm going through that right now.
Yeah.
It goes in phases, but and I'm still trying to put my finger on it, like why this is. I think a big part of it is my ear still developing and me being able to hear things and just dissect all the layers and not really be able to hear a song for what it is, but breaking it down as an engineer and getting distracted by that.
Yeah.
So I can't hear the record anymore. But I don't know. I'm going back and listening to the 2000s again and just loving the mixes back then, how they sounded, the analog days when Pro Tools was really new, and people still went to a high level artist would still be booked at a high level studio with a person who only recorded and that was their main gig.
Yeah.
I'm so disgusted nowadays with A-list artists. Some of these songs that I hear are just, it sounds like they were recorded off an iPhone. Like, are you getting that as well? Like, I'm hearing it from Drake. I'm hearing it from top artists that I'm just like, that sounds absolutely terrible. Like, there's no way that's the lead vocal. And again, it's like, it's me hearing that as an engineer and being like, that saturation's fucking terrible or whatever. Like, I can hear the room noise in the background or what, like all these things going on. But more and more lately, just finding it harder to be impressed, I think, by what I'm hearing in current music. And as a result, going back to the good old days and listening to, Cameron and G Unit and Fat Joe and Ashanti and the R&B and hip hop from the 2000s when Nas, when he still sounded good, because I've been just heartbroken by I don't know if you're a Nas fan, but and I've probably talked about this a bunch before, but like just unlistenable the last 3 albums for me.
He kind of gives me the old uncle at the barbecue vibe now. Like, it's not, he feels like he has a lot to say or wants to say something, but it just doesn't come out the same as it did when some of those earlier records. It feels very forced now.
There's that. There's that. The bars are still there. I can still hear the skill but for me, it's the engineering that's just throw me like way, way off. It's hyper saturated to where they're having to DS like 8 times to compensate for it. But then now it sounds like he has a lisp. I mean, listen to like King's Disease 1 and 2. And I'm just gonna sound like a hater here, so forgive me, but like Nas is my favorite artist. Like, when I grew up, Illmatic was like the reason I fell in love with hip hop, for God's sake. And when I hear like what they're doing to his vocal now and just the sound of the mixing, I'm just like, you guys are butchering a legend. Like, who's responsible here? Like, I need names. Like, I'm pissed. Yeah. And it's like, this is a god level rapper, a Hall of Famer, like one of the GOATs. And I have so many questions. Like, are you guys skipping out on the recording process? Is he not approving these? Do you guys not care anymore? Do you know that like your name is just going to carry you, so you're not even trying anymore? You're just, that'll do. Let's just put the demo out and master it. But to me, all of it just sounds so bad. Like, it breaks my heart, because it's like, you guys are ruining my favorite artist.
I think I don't know if laziness is the right term or if it's complacency. I guess it's probably more complacency at this point.
That's the word I think I was looking for.
In the industry at this point now, because if you're an engineer or if you're mixing and mastering frequently, like you said, you have a different appreciation for what you're hearing for the most part. But we're such a small segment of the overall listener population. Like I've put mixes out for people, and I'm listening to them back, and I'm going, no, let me go over this again. Like let me touch this up again before you put it out, and then I'll have some of my people that I've worked with that'll put a track out that I didn't even think we finished the initial mixing stage yet. I didn't think we were done with this yet. But they're like, no, let's put it out. It's good. And no one cares. Like no one notices pieces that you're sitting there that keep you up at night, where it's like, oh my God, this is just there's a decibel too much in here. Or I can hear this reverb the way it shouldn't be being heard. But other people don't hear that. Like,
no.
I really do miss the day where I could listen to a song and not notice all of these things. But I can't do that anymore. I haven't been able to do that for like 3-4 years. I can't remember the last time I put on a song and just listened to it for the sake of listening to it and didn't know what I was looking to listen for.
There you go. Right? Yeah. You're just curious about the rhymes. I want to go back to the days where I was like, I heard rhyme patterns, not like saturation and compression.
Yeah, it's hard. And I think that kind of ties into where I found like that same question I asked you a little bit ago, where my enjoyment was different. It wasn't about like the quality of the music anymore, because like you said, you don't hear it like that anymore. So I'm not hearing people come up with new stuff. I'm not hearing new styles of rap. I'm just hearing, okay, what are they doing that other people are doing that it makes it sound this way? Yeah. But I do agree with you. Like I hear, like I said, I was a diehard Future fan for a long time. And Dirty Sprite 2 is probably one of my top 3, if not my top album of all time. But even when I hear some of the newer records from him, and you hear the headphone bleed, and you get the drum track that's playing in the background, that you can hear it twice, it's like really?
There's a lot of really, really questionable amateurish stuff coming from A-list people. There's a new record with Elton John and Britney Spears, and I mean, the Britney vocal on that is like, what? Like, I'm sorry, like, what?
Who cleared this? Who was okay with this?
Who was okay with this?
Yeah.
Like when there's so much money at stake, reputations, A&Rs, producers, mixers, mastering engineer, all these people it has to get past.
Yeah.
And that's the finished product?
Yeah.
It's staggering. And I hear it more and more and more nowadays. So it's very strange. I mean, I have ideas, I have theories, obviously nowadays we're in a time where you can make a record on your laptop on your tour bus between shows. And example of that is there's a Josh Goodwin video, who's Justin Bieber's engineer, breaking down a mix, Love Yourself, with Ed Sheeran and Bieber, where they literally did track the guitar on the tour bus. And he's like breaking down the mix, and he shows you the raw track before he mixed it, and like all the wrong frequencies and things he had to do to fix it. But so there's that. And then there's also just the level of entry now is non-existent.
Yeah.
Anybody can make a song and put it out on SoundCloud, and maybe it's a hit, with no prior experience of any engineering, no understanding of gain staging or any fundamentals, with the refrigerator going in the background in the vocal take, and the master clipping at +7 dB, and people are nodding their head to it, and that's okay. People that aren't engineers and producers are just hearing it for a song. So there's that, but it's still like, I hate that that's a thing. I hate that. I hate that there's no quality control or sort of requirement for quality or requirement for expertise anymore. Almost.
I think the SoundCloud, what's the word for this? Like the SoundCloud pathway, where you put a song online and it blows up overnight, and suddenly you're not a household name necessarily, but you're you're tapped in with the youth that's really looking for it. Because when you're in high school, when you're in university, that's where people are really, really hungry for, I want to find the new guy.
Yep.
I want to be the first one to hear it and tell everyone that let me put you on kind of thing, right? So if I'm Drake, and I remember the one that really sticks out in my head is Saw Baby with that he did that Pull Up With a Stick song a couple years ago, and I remember that one was one that was always popping up in my face, and I was seeing her NLE Chapo with the Shot of Flow when it first came out. The mixes are terrible on those. Like they're not good. It's they pass the level of entry obviously, and they're listenable, but when I think of stuff that I've heard locally that's better, that has better mixes on that, right?
Yeah.
And these guys are guys that have a label behind them at this point now. If I'm Drake, or if I'm Future, or if I'm one of the A-listers at a label or anything like that, and I hear stuff like that is doing just fine and it's getting just as many streams and no one's questioning, well, who cares? I'm humongous. People are going to listen to whatever I put out whenever I put it out, and I'm going to have a base. So it's like, how I don't think you can really fall off as hard anymore as you could back in the day. Right, there was a phase in the 2000s and even maybe the early 2010s where it's like, if you put a couple bad records out, like, or if stuff didn't sound right, like, people would just stop listening to you.
Yeah.
The album wouldn't sell, it wouldn't go out in stores. But now we're on streaming where it's like, oh, I screwed up, whatever, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
Like they dropped the ball in Astro World with that nav mix.
I heard about
Yosemite,
that,
right? And 2-3 days later, it was fixed.
Yeah.
Let me just patch your album real quick. It's all good. Re-download it. It's fine.
Yeah, I heard that story. That shit blew my mind. And it's almost like, because we know that that's a thing, that we're not putting the effort in before.
No.
We're not as concerned because, if we screwed up, we'll re-upload the file. And it's there in an hour, or 45 minutes. It's you know why, like, it really I know why it bothers me so much. It's because I've spent 2 decades of my life trying not to do all those things, watching every tutorial I can possibly find on YouTube, spending countless hours in the studio tweaking my mixes, listening back, trying to perfect the shit.
Yeah.
And then so when I hear it done incorrectly, especially from high level people, it makes me want to cry. I'm just like, I can't believe this. Why am I even bothering?
Yep.
So it's a really difficult pill to swallow. But here, I mean, what can I do about it? I mean, it's not the only way that we're hearing music now. There's stuff that for sure still impresses me, but that's a reality. That stuff exists. That stuff is out there. That there's very questionable things coming out. I'm trying to figure out, like, when I first started hearing it and seeing if I can, blame someone, or if there's like one artist or one generation
so one
or
guy
one
I can get mad at.
Yeah, for being like, who's the first couple artists that broke through with crap sounding mixes that, okay, now that's a thing now. Well, he did it. We can all, that's okay now.
Some of those early, even though they sound great, like, and they convey what the song is supposed to feel, some of those early XXX mixes were absolutely horrible. Like they are not appealing to your ear.
Clipping like crazy.
And they broke all the rules, right? Like you're not supposed to do that. But some of them it works for, and I think that's part of what brought him to where he was, right? But again, when you listen to even some of those slower songs that aren't supposed to be mosh songs and, punch someone next to you kind of thing, like, they're not, I don't want to hear your vocals slamming the top of my eardrums, right? Like,
no, that's definitely one of them for sure. Because he was such a polarizing figure in so many ways, and an anomaly, really. Yeah. I mean, for the amount of time that he lasted, the impression that he left. But definitely, some of those are super sus.
Well, and they're still milking the hell out of it too. I think he's dropped like 3 albums since he's died, and they're just patching together old demos or whatever. But it still sounds like shit, some of them. Like, it's like you guys are really trying to drag the last little bit of money that you can out of this poor kid that passed untimely, and you're not even doing some of these things justice. Like if you're going to be lazy and just say it's a cash grab off of the kid's name as much as it is, like, I mean, just do it and like at least acknowledge that that's what it is. Don't sit there and say that you're trying to
honor him.
Yeah. You know, like we got a Biggie album after he died, and it's one of the must listen hip hop albums on, you know, if you ask any reputable source. Biggie and Tupac might not be as relevant today. You know, it's not necessarily for the kids that are 18, 19 now, because they've had a whole different generation of leading acts. But
yeah,
you can't really discuss where we're at now without acknowledging that those are huge albums that have a place in the continuity of the genre, right?
Of course, yeah. Or we were talking about this last week, the Loyal to the Game by Tupac, you know, that came out when I was in high school and sounded great, you know, like they hired the right people for that project and cared about it. It wasn't, I mean, it was about, obviously everything is about money, but it was more like, we're going to pay respect to a legend here, you know, like there were some features on that album of like relevant artists, and like, let's put together a body of work that really, you know, shows how special this person was. Let's hire like the right engineers, everything, and it was done correctly. No steps were skipped over.
Yeah,
you know. Yeah, what a strange time to be alive now, though, with laptops and soft clippers.
Well, it scares the shit out of me with this whole digital artist phenomenon stuff, or even with all the posthumous albums, you know what I mean, that aren't for any purpose. You know, you can only drop so many projects after someone passes away before you realize that again, it all goes back to the money that can still be generated. It's still a product. So if I don't even have to be alive for you to release my music, or if I don't even have to be a real person, like, I don't know if you saw that controversy with the AI artist that they were trying to sign to Capitol, and then that got immediately dropped when they realized it was a white guy. Like,
what are we doing?
But that sets, you know, great, he got dropped, whatever, like the project is shelved, but that, you know, that's the only one we've heard about, right? How many project teams are sitting in big towers with Capitol, UMG, Republic, whatever large scale label that goes, okay, 10 years from now, you know, we might even just be able to retain some of these large artists who don't want to appear on screen anymore, but want to continue to create a product for us. Or maybe they've passed their shelf life as far as relating to the current population, but they can still make good music. So let's put them behind a computer screen where they're not even a real figure anymore. And, you know, now you're selling out digital concerts on Fortnite for the next 5 years just off of someone that doesn't even really exist. I think that's where you're going to see this barrier to entry kind of shut off again. Like, we've gotten to this point now where we've pushed the boundary of it, where everyone can do it. Everyone can find a way into the industry. And that's led us to this kind of period of oversaturation where there's so much shit out there now that even if it's listenable, or it might be technically sound, or it meets the general requirements to be a song that lands on Spotify, I might never click it. There's a whole lot of shit that's sitting out there with less than 1,000 streams organically, and that people, if it weren't for the fact that someone paid to pitch it to a playlist, that it wouldn't be getting caught. Yeah. Right. You're not going to see the age of the megastar is dead. Right. Like, you're not ever going to get another person that surpasses those records that were set by guys like Michael Jackson, or guys that are currently setting the records like Drake. I can't think of a hip hop artist at this point, because that still is the mainstream genre at this point in time. But who's going to touch those heights? Drake is probably the last super big crossover appeal music celebrity that we have.
Maybe ever.
You know,
if things continue the way they are going.
It's that same principle of when you're building a local scene. Like, how do you build a headliner? Well, you put them on all the shows with all of the bigger artists that are coming to town, and you build them a reputation so that everyone that goes to those shows sees them, and then they identify, okay, this guy is probably next up. Yeah. Right? You think about, like, with Boslin, when you saw that string of him opening up for I can't remember, it was like Lil Key, 88 Glam, shit like that, right? He was on everything.
Yes.
You know, there might have been other openers, but you knew he was the guy that went right before the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then that, you know, now the city knows who he is, and now it helps give that extra push to, you know, the next level, right? Same way you would build a headliner in the music industry, like on a larger scale of past that local stage. How can I get this to everyone's ears? You don't filter it in with 30,000 new songs a day. You make sure that it's one of the 7 songs that are dropping on this specific day. But we can't do that when people are dropping 3 albums a year. How do you do that? No one has 36 hits in them every 12 months.
Do you see that NBA YoungBoy just put out another album? He put out a 36 song album a month ago, and he's got a new album out right now.
Yeah. He's doing Gucci numbers in terms of output.
Yeah.
But,
Gucci Mane.
You know, and the guy's cranking, you know, I think I saw the stat a couple, you know, it's probably more by now, but I think the kid's cranking out like 75 million a year off of YouTube alone, based on the views that he's getting.
Yeah.
But a 40-year-old mother is not going to know who NBA YoungBoy is. Yeah. She's probably never heard an NBA YoungBoy song in her life. Mm-hmm. They don't think that makes it to radio, especially not in Canada. We're so isolated from the sound that actually is mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. He's not even like he's a big artist, but he's not mainstream. He's not like a known household name.
Exactly.
Still making that level of money and generating that many streams because
the youth is tapped in.
There's a market for it, and they've really found who they're selling it to.
But how long is that going to sell for? Because he's got to be 23 or something like that right now. He's super young, right? But eventually he's going to be 30.
Mm-hmm.
And how long can you sustain that for? Like, I feel like Gucci's even a bit of an anomaly because he was in prison, mm-hmm. and you were cut off. So you had this string of hits where people were like, okay, I'm really liking this. And then suddenly you couldn't have that for a little while, even though he was still releasing shit from jail and mm-hmm. they were punching stuff out, right? But then he came out and suddenly he was tenfold bigger than he actually was when he went in. But he's still not even world renowned.
No, by no means.
He's not even, you know, like Snoop Dogg class where it's not everyone just knows who you are, even if it's not for the music aspect, right?
Yeah, you're more of a character.
You're just a celebrity at this point.
Celebrity, yeah. Yeah. Oh man. I'm astonished at so many of it, just the state of things right now. It's hard. Like I thought I had a good grasp of it. I've been spending all these years trying to figure it out, and then it's just constantly like slipping away. It's like things are changing so fast. Like, do I even know what's going on right now? No, I don't. I'm just trying to make good mixes, man. But like what a crazy industry to be in, to try and figure this all out. Yeah. Trying to find your place in it, trying to, I don't know, make sense of it all. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't.
And I think you just have to work with the environment that you can control, right? Like that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with finding your niche and finding your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm making money, like, what do I care? I'll worry about the other problems tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Like, as long as I'm sustaining myself, as long as I'm meeting my requirement and serving my purpose in this particular pocket, and I can worry about the other stuff afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Just focus on what you can control.
Yeah.
Yeah. The stuff locally. I'm so proud to be here and proud to be working with the people that I do work with. You know, I talk about this often, but some of my favorite artists, period, are the people that I'm working with.
Yep.
It's so cool. It's so cool to say that. Some of my favorite records are records that I get to mix. Like genuinely, like my wife and I are playing at home and being like, this artist is so cool. Like, we fucking love this person. Oh, and I got to mix this song. Like, wow, what a privilege. I'm really excited, you know, to see where Vancouver goes in the next 5-10 years. I mean, I really hope that we do get more attention, more eyes on the city. There was a period where I don't know if you remember Swollen Members.
Yep.
When I was in high school, they were international at that point. Yep. They were an international act from Vancouver, but still never really repped Vancouver the way that Drake reps Toronto. And I think that's a mistake. And you know, I'm not going to name names, but other artists that are making a name for themselves coming out of Vancouver at the moment, I really hope that they do not forget where they came from. You know, not saying like bring us along with you, but like respect where you come from. You know, and let people know where you're from. Rep where you're from, and be proud of where you're from, because there's so much untapped, undiscovered talent here.
Yeah,
that I would hate to see go to waste.
Do you think that has to do more with the change in culture too, though? Like, you think about the pre-internet local scene. I can't really say I know a whole lot about it other than what people have told me over the years and what my dad told me it was like going to, you know, music shows in the 80s and 90s and stuff like that, right? But if your city wasn't behind you, how are you going to go anywhere? Because it's not like someone from, you know, if I live in Vancouver, it's not like some random guy from Montreal could look me up on the internet and find a song. They had to find a way to get it there. I had to either get radio play over there, I had to go play a show there, yada yada. Now it's like people, you know, I don't even have to be popular in my own city to be, you know, getting streams or getting recognized on the internet.
No, not at all.
Like, we have a friend that I grew up with in Mission that is making music, and his primary listener base isn't here. Like, it's you know, he makes lo-fi music, and it looks like a lot of his streams are coming from places where the artists he's affiliated with are from. So he does songs with guys from Texas, and there's a lot of streamers coming from Texas, but he might not be getting a whole lot of attention up here. If you were to drop him in the middle of a show in Vancouver right now, I'm not sure how many people would have heard of him or know who he is, but he's doing more organic numbers than some of the people who are touted out here and that are getting recognized, right? So how much can that's where that don't forget where you came from piece comes from. It's like some of these people, I think, have that sense of, well, my city didn't support me first, so why am I going to rep it like it did when I'm getting all of this attention from people elsewhere that I'm not feeling appreciated where I'm even at home, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a legit point. Because with the internet, you don't need your local venue. You don't need your local bar. Yeah, for people to come see you. But I do see it as just like an ethics thing and a respect thing. Because I know, like, for me, like, I'm proud to be from here, and that's just my mindset, I guess. You know. And if I was in that position where I was making it in the States, I'd be like dropping Vancouver in all my bars, man. All my 16s would have Van City in them, you know.
Well, I think that cliche gets parroted so much nowadays too, of the people closest to you or your city won't support you first. They're always going to be late to the party or something like that. That gets parroted so much. I see it everywhere when it comes to, maybe it's just because I'm following more local artists than anything, but that seems to be one that shows up a lot. But that's not necessarily true, because I've seen it. Like, you look at some of the talent that's playing bigger shows now that things are back or getting tapped in and being opening acts for things. Those are people that came up organically here. Those are people that are getting the primary of their listening base out here. So it's still possible. Yeah. You know, you just actually have to engage with your community if you want your community to engage back with you.
Yeah, that's a huge point. Yeah, community engagement. Meet people, sell merch. Now that we're, hopefully past the pandemic again, people get back into shows, and I know a couple artists who are making cassettes.
Yeah.
And I was like, who's got a cassette player nowadays? No one's gonna be able to play a cassette. And they're like, it's not about that. Like, it's just like a thing for people to have.
It's content.
It's content. You can take something home from their favorite artist and hold it and be like, I supported this person. This is my local favorite artist. I don't have a fucking cassette player, but I have a thing that they made that I could take home. I was like, okay, I understand that. That's actually really cool. Yeah. So what's next for you? Like, what are you working on now that you can like tell us about, maybe coming out in the near future?
Yeah. So one of the biggest pain points for me in releasing music was I just kind of settled on the JML name when I first started doing stuff because I needed something, and it's easy. Like my I have a hyphenated name, so the J stands for Jamal, so I just dropped the A's and the JML came like that. But when I release now, it's not very optimal for search engines. It's very difficult to find me if you don't know what you're looking for already, or if you're not clicking a link that I sent you. And it's easy to get me confused, or I have other people's stuff showing up on my pages, or it's just a lot of having to monitor and take stuff down if it's not mine, and then you're constantly dealing with Spotify or streaming platforms and stuff. So it's a pain point. So what I'm working on right now is trying to figure out how to rebrand and move forward with some of the new records that I've been sitting on for a while that I know are good and that I do want to come out. But again, that's that piece now that I'm thinking of is, if I'm going to put it out, like I'd like it to at least be, if I'm not going to want to do the work on the promoting side of it and I just want to let things simmer in the world, I at least want to let them simmer in the world the right way.
Got it.
So it's, I am going to, I've got probably a good 20, 25 records that I know will see light of day at this point, and I think they're at the point now where I'm happy with what they convey, but I don't, I'm still in this stage of I like just being to myself. I don't want to go into acting like I'm a big deal or anything like that. Like I just like making the music.
Right.
But if it is going to come out, then at least I want someone to be able to find it organically. I don't want it to get lost or misbranded or
Yep. So getting all the what's the right metaphor? All your cards in order, right?
Yeah.
Getting things lined up so that you can have, and like what you said earlier, not just putting something out for the sake of putting it out. Like you want to really believe in it. You want to be behind it. You want it to come out the way you want it to. So that's good. That takes a lot of patience.
Yeah. Yeah. I've, sometimes I err too much on the patient side, I think, but the feedback that I get on some of the music that I do and when I do put it out is good. And if whenever I go out to shows or whenever I meet up with people that I haven't seen from the community out here, it's, one of the first questions that they ask is, when are you going to put this one out, or what are you going to do with this one? So at least I know that there's still
interest,
some kind of demand or some kind of interest for it. So
that's good.
Even if it's not something that takes me anywhere bigger than where I'm at now, and it just reinforces the niche that I'm in now, I'm happy with that. But as long as it's not a detriment to me, or I'm putting out something that's not good, and it, it's almost even bigger on the local stage, where if you screw up or if you make something bad, then people will write you off very quickly.
Yeah, because the community is not that big, and everyone knows each other around here.
It's like, oh, what happened to this guy? Like,
yeah.
What's he doing now?
Yeah. It's different. It's funny because when it's smaller, it's actually, the impact is bigger in a way, right? Yeah. Who can you tell me, like, maybe just a couple names of people you are working on that we should know about?
Yeah. So there's one of our buddies that was originally working with me, Yanami. He's done the last drop that he did. He did a video with Silver Spades.
Okay.
Or I guess he's directed by A's now.
Oh wait, A's Avora?
Yeah.
Oh, wicked. Okay, because he works with Jared Moore, who I've been mixing.
I saw he did some kind of visualizer or something.
Visualizers. Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. On.
So Yanami did a video with him, and I think he's got one coming out pretty quick here for a record that I produced. A lot of fun music with him. He's another one where he's taking his time with the releases and making sure that he's happy with what's coming out, and he's picking the records that are really good. So I'm happy to see some of that stuff coming out now. We've got another one who he's rebranded recently. He's going by September Apollo now, and I just finished up a short EP with him, doing all the production, and some of it's a handful of records that we had from before, and some of them are newer. So that should be coming out fairly shortly here. And then that's pretty much the ones that I can think of right now that are in the pipeline.
Okay.
Can't really think of much else.
Great. Well, we'll make sure to, when the show comes out not only put links, to your stuff, but the people that you're working closely with as well.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Get everyone talking about each other. Get the community to talk about each other.
Yeah.
So why don't we wrap it up? This has been super fun. Thank you again for taking the time out of your day to come out here and chat with me. Getting to meet you in person finally has been a huge pleasure. And I've learned a lot from you today, so thank you. And I hope everyone else enjoyed the episode as well. It's JML on Demo to Limo with Max Deshaw. And thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Beautiful.